Welcome to 5 Good Minutes.
You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Daniel
With Dan Irvin.
Well, welcome into the 5 Good Minutes podcast this week. We're checking out the book of Daniel, chapter 1 this week. And in the first chapter of Daniel, we meet a group of young Israelites, Daniel and his 3 friends, who have just been taken captives as Babylon had conquered Jerusalem. And these aren't just any captives that we read about, but Daniel and his friends, they are bright, they are young, they're gifted, and they've been recruited to serve in the king's palace because of that. So just imagine for a moment they're likely teenagers, maybe a little bit older, and everything they've ever known, their land, their temple, their culture, their language, it's all gone, completely a new world. And they're put into this Babylonian training program. It's a full reorientation, a new language, new literature. They're even given new names, new food to eat. It's not just assimilation, but it's an identity replacement program. And something remarkable happens in this book that we see throughout the pages. In the first 6 chapters, essentially, are stories about Daniel and his 3 friends. They don't rebel. They don't hide. They don't sell out. Instead, they live faithfully to who they are. They are able to navigate this hostile culture without losing their identity. You know, Daniel accepts a new Babylonian name in the first chapter. He studies their literature. He learns what they're about. He serves in the king's court. But there's one thing that Daniel won't do. He will not eat the king's food. Now, what is significant about this? This was more than just the ancient Jewish dietary restrictions and cleanliness laws of what to eat and what not to eat. That was part of it. But it was also symbolic, because in the ancient world, eating from a king's table was, in a sense, it was a way of showing your loyalty and your dependence to the king, essentially saying, my security, my identity, they all come from you, the king. So Daniel draws the line in a quiet way, in a respectful way. He works with the officials to find another way. You know, Daniel finds a way to be in Babylon, but not of Babylon. He engages with the culture without letting the culture redefine him. You know, if we stopped right there, this would be a really nice little story in the Bible that we could just say, hey, why don't you just be like Daniel? Just resist the culture around you. Be in it, be with people, but resist the temptation to become like everyone else. But that would be missing the point, I think, the big point of this book of the Bible, and really of a lot of Old Testament books. The point of the story of Daniel, his life, is a pretense for what is to come. That Daniel, the ultimate Daniel, Jesus Christ, would be thrown into a much more brutal and hostile environment where the Jewish people were again being oppressed, this time by the Roman government. And in Jesus, we see truly what it means to engage with culture, but to live in a way that honors and respects God. And here's where this is important for us. You know, we may not live in this ancient Babylonian world, but in a very real sense, we're kind of living in an exile in some ways, because our society, for the large part, the church's values, the values of the Bible, you know, truth, justice, sexual identity, meaning, what it means to be human, are really far off from what God had designed. And we face, in a similar way, to temptations Daniel faced, 2 of them, you know, to withdraw from this completely and to be in a bubble, or to just kind of assimilate and go along with everything that's going on. But the gospel of Jesus Christ calls us to something more beautiful and more courageous, to live in a way that Jesus calls us to live, to be the salt of the earth, to add flavor, to be the light of the world, to a room that is dark, And to be the light of the world to a room that is dark, we have to be present. We have to show up. We have to trust that God is the one doing the work in us, just as Jesus did the work that we could never do for ourselves. You know, the gospel gives us a reason to be humble because we were saved not by anything we did, but by what God did. And we can have courage in this and knowing that our identity and our hope is rooted in who God is and what he did, not in the acceptance of the culture around us or what they say about our lives.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.